So have you ever been thrown a curveball during a job interview? Has a prospective employer asked a question that just seems totally out of left field and unanswerable?
We were talking during the break. We both have had some odd ones thrown at us, and that is why we are joined now by Louis Lynn, CEO of Impact Interview. And what's some of the toughest questions you've heard of? And then on the other hand, why do employers ask them?
Well, the really popular questions these days that's making the rounds around media is some of these crazy oddball questions like, why are manhole covers round? Or what's 2 to the 64th power? Or why do like the clock hands overlap how many times during the day? These are absolutely crazy questions. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what is the employer getting at? What are they looking for?
Well, a lot of these employers, they're looking for problem-solving skills, and so they like to use these kind of questions to test how you'd solve problems in some sort of ambiguous situation. And these questions are really interesting, but then they're also kind of controversial too. On the pro side, some of these questions like, how much money does Gmail make in their ads? That might be somebody's job as a financial analyst. But then again, these questions are controversial because who knows, like somebody who is really practicing these questions, they might memorize these answers going into the job interview.
I know Google had a really crazy one about window washing. What was that question?
So the question is, how much would you charge to wash all the windows in Seattle? And so got Seattle on the map, but a lot of people were there Googling answers throughout the internet. How much would you charge? How much would you charge? Yeah.
What's the right answer if you're a job candidate?
Are you asking me?
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, how do you properly respond to that?
So it's an estimation question. They want to understand your thought process. And so something like this, you might think to yourself, okay, maybe a window washer, they're charging about $20 an hour. They can maybe wash, let's say, maybe about 12 windows in a given hour. So that's about like, given a course of a day, it's probably like 600 different windows. I was walking down the block. This is a big building. It's about 600 windows. 10,000 city blocks. Before you know it, that's about 10 million bucks.
Wow.
Okay. So what about those questions that you could get asked no matter what field you're in? Questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or what's your biggest mistake or
weakness? Oh,
yeah.
This is the worst.
I'll cover the weakness question. So that's a really interesting question. People just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to reveal too much about what makes me a not so great candidate. But employers are really looking for 3 key things here. Number 1, self-awareness. Are you comfortable in yourself so that you can reveal something true and genuine versus some made-up weakness like I work too hard?
Right.
The second thing that they're looking for is initiative. Have you taken an action plan to actually resolve this weakness? And the last part is a happy ending. It's great. You've worked on this weakness. Now, how are you now? Are you much, much better than when you first started?
Louis, one quick question, because we don't have a lot of time, but a lot of my followers on Twitter were asking me this. They said, just generally, I struggle with interviews. So what are 3 quick things you can do to just be calmer and more prepared as you go in?
Oh, gosh. You know what? When I think about being anxious in the interview, it's about not knowing what to say. And so there was a great quote from the senior VP of HR at Google who said, you know what? You can probably anticipate like 95% of interview questions out there. So brainstorm a list. Write down your responses in advance, just think through it, and when you go into the interview, you'll have a better sense of what to say.
All right. Preparation is key.
Yeah.
Louis Lynn, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.